not to sound like a masturbation enthusiast with the lisp, but I really love ranking. So I'm ranking every Tough Enough contestant from every season. And you may be wondering what this ranking system is based off. Is it how far they made it on the show, how successful they were after the show? It's actually going to be based off a relatively new scientific system called Whoever Kean thinks is coolest. I would make this intro longer, but there's 75 of them, so I'm just going to get right into it. Patrick Clark, he's last, dead last. He probably would have been top 5 without the allegations. Like, I was fucking raging when he got eliminated, but those were better times. And yeah, Chris, season 1. You may not remember Chris. In season 1, he was an anonymous background character for a few episodes until he decided that he needed to do something to stand out from the pack and really make a name for himself. So he tried to drown Nydia, and then he made it pretty far into the competition, but still quit anyway, so not great. John, season 4. Season 4 was the worst season of Tough Enough by a considerable margin because it wasn't really a season. It was just segments on SmackDown, basically SmackDown's Divas Search. This means that John technically quit after 9 minutes. Jill, season 3. So Jill fancied Jonah, then Jonah admitted he had a girlfriend, and she quit. Deanna, season 6. Deanna was another contestant who quit, but she was from season 6, which is the worst cast out of every season by a considerable margin. So to be the only person who quit from that cast, that justifies, for me, not being able to crack the top 70. Nick Mitchell. Oh my Christ, this man was fucking unbearable. I don't care if he later joined the Spirit Squad and had an actual run in WWE. This man was the shit for one key reason. He described himself as funny. And you know exactly what that means when someone says that. It's funny faces and loud noises type of funny. It's TikTok Vine type funny, but like the proper shite ones, you know what I mean? It's like the type of funny. This man was Lele Pons in wrestler form, and his only redemptive feature was that he got slapped by the Big Show. Number 69, Michael Zaki. This bald cunt. If you don't remember Michael Zaki, then congratulations on being literally anyone besides me. This was an insecure 27-year-old teenager who just wanted to impress the lads. And he used to give Ryan Howe shit because he wanted to look like a big man. But then when it all came down to it, we'll get to that later. Hank, season 6. He finished last on season 6, the same season as Zizi and Sarah Lee. The bar is literally stuck to the ground and he finished last. Alicia, season 2. Alicia had a bad back, and contestants with a bad back were the fucking worst because they weren't injured enough to drop out of the competition, but they weren't healthy enough to do anything, so they were just sitting there doing nothing. And the fact that Danny got cut before Alicia is an absolute joke, but you know, we'll get to that later. Kelly, season 3, bad back, same story. Jason, season 1. Jason was considered a favourite at the start because he was jacked. I am actually blown away by how much this man looks like a default created wrestler.
I'll live, but they're not gonna get off that easy.
Jason quit in the first few episodes. Michelle, season 5. Michelle could have been a really cool WWE superstar, and instead she gave up that opportunity to go and hang out with her daughter, like a nerd. Victoria, season 1. Victoria quit early alongside Bobby Joe Anderson. Bobby Joe Anderson. She unapologetically didn't give a shit about wrestling and just wanted to use Tough Enough as a platform to try and achieve her goal of posing for Playboy. Did she ever achieve those goals? I guess we'll never know, because I would never read that filth. Dan, season 4. The problem with season 4 was that no one ever got the chance to really know the contestants on the show that year, but judging by his time on the show and his eventual political career, for Dan, that's probably a good thing. Pete, season 2. Pete got his first boner on the show, so congratulations to him on that. He kissed Jackie on a night out, and as Jackie cried about the decision and how much she regrets it, he was convinced that any minute now she would change her mind, and it never happened. Rebecca, season 3. Rebecca hated everyone on the show because they weren't Christian, and while that's not very nice, it did make me laugh quite a lot, so she makes the top 60. Annie, season 2. She was alright, I suppose. Robert, season 2. They usually deliberately bring someone in that's badly out of shape in order to make an example out of them, but to be fair, Robert never gave up. The one thing I remember about Robert was him claiming that he thought he was going to die during the beach challenge, and that made me laugh until Aaron, season 2, collapsed after the beach challenge and nearly died. Lisa, season 3. Lisa was hated by her trainers because, God forbid, she smiled when she made a mistake. After the completely unnecessary aggression from her trainers, she quietly decided that wrestling wasn't for her. or she had a meltdown and ran onto the roof of the house, depending on who you ask. Jessie, season 2. Again, Jessie was basically Bayley, but Bayley didn't exist yet, so the trainers were absolutely fucking horrified that somebody would laugh and smile while they trained. Ivory even accused Jessie of smiling because she wanted to fuck everyone she was training with. I'm not taking the piss. Jessie ended up crying, and I'd like to put her higher on the list, but her body broke down pretty early and she never did anything after the show. Sarah Lee also smiled quite a lot, but because Bayley now existed, the judges and trainers weren't freaked out over somebody being happy. That's good. The only problem was that she was absolutely shy. Sarah Lee beat Sonya Deville, Mandy Rose and Chelsea Green and did absolutely nothing with it. Josh, season 6. Josh also won season 6 of Tough Enough, which is a bit like winning a first blood match with a haemophiliac. Yes, he won it, but his career afterwards tells the full story. Shadrick McGee. Shadrick wasn't bad. He was just a massive ball of anxiety. He was the first normal person to be eliminated from season 1 who didn't quit or have any real issues. He probably would have won season 6 if he was on that instead. ZZ. I don't know where to start with this man. The fella used to say, I left everything back home, but then it turned out he only lived 3 hours away, and if anything, it'd actually be a bit weird if he brought everything with him, considering he's only staying there for a few weeks. At first, he appeared to be this lovable underdog type, but then it transpired that he was just a moany bastard with no intentions of improving. The fans kept him in. I really hate this season. Tanner, season 6. Tanner's whole thing was that he had athleticism, which in hindsight is probably the least valuable trait anyone can have on that show. Like, if you're big, you're big. If you can talk, not everyone can talk. Even if you're really good in the ring, not everyone else can learn as quick as you. So those are all good traits to have, but athleticism can be worked on. So he ended up going back to MMA instead. Gigi, season 6. Gigi was very good at challenges, and that was it. And she hasn't wrestled since. Jamie, season 3. Jamie was very passionate about wrestling. So passionate about wrestling, in fact, that she broke down crying several times on the show just because she wanted to be a wrestler that bad. She hasn't wrestled since. Chris Narocki. This fella could play guitar, which is pretty cool. And that's all I really have to say. Scott, season 3. Scott was one of the more memorable Tough Enough contestants. He loved using homophobic slurs, asking Jamie creepy questions, pissing off the coaches. He had a seizure after pissing himself on a night out, and he asked a girl from school to come visit him in California despite not talking to her in 4 years. Was he successful? No. But he did pretty well for an 11-year-old. Alex, season 6. This is what happens when you max out all your stats in the physical category and ignore everything else. My one memory from this man was him saying that knowledge means nothing, and then everyone laughed at him. But you know what? He ranks reasonably high because I actually respect him for being so unapologetically dumb and never backing down even when he's in the wrong. Justin Smith. He finished 3rd and went on to become one of the American Gladiators, which is probably cooler than anything he's done on the actual show. Mada, season 6. I fucking hated Mada. This fella was big and okay at promos, but Mada was able to stare at people for a long time and breathe heavily, and the judges would just cream themselves because they'd be like, the intensity. Matt Morgan. Matt Morgan's season aired in 2002. I don't know why he bothered putting in any effort. He literally could have just shat on his hands and clapped in the audition, and they still would have signed him because he was that big. And again, it's 2002. Paulina, season 1. Paulina was pretty cool, to be fair, and probably would have gone on to win it, but her body just broke down. Eric, season 5. I actually have nothing to say about Eric. I just wanted to keep the streak of tall people going. Gabby, season 6. Gabby was the sort of contestant that you assumed was just doing it for a laugh, but she actually gave wrestling a go after the show, so I can't really argue with that. Justin and Eric, season 3. We're putting them both in 2 positions next to each other because after watching all of season 3, I still couldn't tell you which one was Justin and which one was Eric. Andy Levine, Silent Rage. They could have chosen anyone to win this show, and they chose him. I don't need to elaborate on that. Chris Nowinski, this was the Harvard lad who, if you don't know what Harvard is, it's basically the college that when people apply for IADT but don't get a place, they go here. He was pretty good on the show, but what he did afterwards was he did a lot of work with CTE, not with CTE, like not in favor of CTE. He doesn't help CTE, he helps the people dealing with, yeah, it doesn't matter. AJ Kirsch, the in-ring ability of AJ Styles, the charisma of AJ Lee. AJ had neither of those things, but he was alright, so I'm going to leave him here. Chelsea Green. Chelsea Green got brought into Tough Enough as a late replacement, but still managed to make a career out of it, so good for her. Mandy Rose. People hated Mandy Rose on the show, but nowadays, she's the only one holding on to an actual title in WWE, whereas Sarah Lee is somewhere, presumably. Sonya Deville. The men on season 6 were shite, but the women were actually pretty decent in hindsight. Mandy Rose, she finished second and won the NXT title, but Sonya Deville is cooler, so I'm putting her in the top 30. Eva Lise. People don't like Eva Lise, but she went from Tough Enough to Lucha Underground, and that's good enough for my top 30. Martin. People like Martin, but he went from Tough Enough to Lucha Underground, and that's good enough for my top 30. Matt Cross. Now, like a lot of rookies on this show, Matt Cross was quite inexperienced at this stage. He only wrestled for about 12 years before this. Just a few years in CZW, Ring of Honor, countless indies, a brief stint on MTV. Why was this fella trained by Bill DeMott? He should be training Bill DeMott. This fella he was eliminated in the second week because, God forbid, he had the audacity to have manners. He said permission to speak and everyone laughed. What are you laughing at? You're the same people who thought that Silent Rage would make a better Tough Enough winner than Matt Cross. Are you tick? You let Miss USA last longer on the show than Matt Cross. You let Michael Zaki last longer on the show than Matt Cross. Matt Cross is this high on the list because despite his lack of success in the show, he exposed just how much of a joke the show really is. And he went from that to Lucha Underground, and that's good enough for top 30. Jackie, season 2. How Jackie was picked to win over Kenny King, I have absolutely no idea, but she still did it, so fair play. Nydia, season 1. The first winner of Tough Enough. She didn't really do anything else, but still a cool piece of history. Linda, season 2. Continuing on the very exciting trend of winners who ended up not doing a huge amount. Here's Linda. Hawk, season 2. Hawk was the most hyper wrestler I've ever seen in my life. I have no idea what he's doing these days, but I hope he's doing well. Jonah, season 3. Jonah will go down in history for me because he committed one of the shittest pranks I have ever seen. My skin crawled off itself watching this, and that's how I became a cartoon character, right? This fella hurt his head in training and had to go to the hospital, and the doctor told him he was grand, so he came back with a big bandage and a brace around his neck and told everyone to sit down. And basically, he pretended he was in a really bad way and that he had to leave the competition, and everyone was crying and telling him how much they loved him, and Matt especially was like, yo, you're my brother, I'll always love you, all that, in floods of tears, only for Jonah to be like, ha! Joking. Rima, season 5. Miss USA, fucking desperate. However, she did manage to outlast Matt Cross, and she was willing to have a one-on-one class with Bill DeMott just to survive one more week. I'd rather do a table for 3 with Kane and Jackson Riker than a one-on-one class with Bill DeMott, so I'll give her credit for her effort. And she was also quite nice to Ryan. Christina, season 5. Christina is Alicia Fox's sister, and when you come from a wrestling family like the Harts, Guerreros, Von Erichs, the Foxes, it can be a lot of pressure, obviously, but she put all that aside, still managed to finish 4th, so fair play to her. Taylor, season 1. In season 1, there had to be 1 male and 1 female winner, and there were only 5 women. 2 of them quit, and 1 of them got injured, meaning that Taylor managed to finish 2nd solely by existing. She fell upwards. That, to me, is more impressive than winning the show. Danny, season 2. This fella got fucking shafted, right? He called himself the Danimal, and he cut a promo in front of the Dudleys where he referred to everyone in the crowd as his fanimals, right? The promo was so bad that the trainers immediately booted him off the show, even though one of the contestants was literally injured and couldn't do anything. And you know what? I love the promo. He got shafted. Danny's in my top 20. Luke Robinson. This man is a genius. He convinced so many people that he was going to be the next Miz because he was arrogant and he had a little bit of charisma. Then the second the show finished, he disappeared, and that was the last we ever saw of him in WWE. Jacob, season 2. Could he wrestle? No. However, did he have charisma? No. But this man was big, and he had the coolest haircut I've ever seen in my life. He said, yes, I would like to cut my hair like Ronaldo, spike it up like Tyson Kidd, bleach it blonde like early 2000s CM Punk, and the end result, he's literally the Chad from the Chad Virgin thing. And speaking of Chads, Chad, season 3. Chad by name, Chad by nature. This fella was the most boring man I've ever seen in my life, but it was impressively boring. You know what I mean? He got eliminated despite being tall and a better wrestler than half the cast because he was just that dull and boring. And to be honest, I respect it. Nick, Season 3. Nick only goes for supermodels, and every time you ask for a girl's number, he gets it. And I know that this is true because he said it, and I've no reason to believe that he's lying, so, I mean, that's pretty cool to be fair. Daryl, Season 1. Daryl was a fucking slob. He never washed his clothes, his balls hung out of his shorts, he was dangerous in the ring, he wouldn't stop complaining about his cold, he was disrespectful, he was lazy, he pissed off everyone around him, and for that, I think he's fucking hilarious. I respect him, and he's quite unlucky to miss out on my top 10 if I'm being honest. Greg, Season 1. Did Greg win Tough Enough? No. Did he ever get signed? No. But he got something that nobody else got, and that was the ultimate seal of approval. He was told by Triple H that he had a good snap. Josh Matthews. I don't care if people don't like Josh Matthews because of his Impact run. I love Josh Matthews. If you never had Sky Sports growing up and you had to watch WWE Experience and Sky 1 instead, then Todd Grisham and Josh Matthews were your childhood. I also love Josh on the show because he was a small nerd that lasted right until the end and technically got the longest run in WWE out of everyone from Season 1. Jeremiah Riggs. If the only complaint anyone has about you is that you've left your teeth in their ring, then you've probably done a pretty good job. I always loved Jeremiah because he was always happy to just do whatever. Fella even did the Ultimate Fighter at one point despite not knowing how to fight, so I'm a big fan. Ryan Howe. Ryan Howe was the fucking man for one reason and one reason only. After Michael bullied him and tried to act the hard man, Steve Austin had them cut a promo on each other where Ryan absolutely wiped the fucking floor with him. Honest to Christ, one of the most satisfying things I've ever seen as a wrestling fan. He's also still wrestling over a decade later, and I'm pretty sure he won a belt in OVW, so good for him. The Miz. Probably most people's number one. Definitely the most successful contestant from the show. I don't have anything negative to say about The Miz, I just prefer the 7 other people to him. Kenny King. Kenny King, even to this day, is stupidly underrated. I don't know why the fuck he never won the show or why he never got a run in WWE, but Kenny King, mad underrated. I'm putting him in at number 7. Maven. Mr. Tough Enough. Very unlucky to miss out on my top 5, but when you hear the rest of my top 5, you'll understand. 5, Ryan Reeves. See? You understand now, right? This has nothing to do with Ryback or Skip Sheffield. It's to do with the fact that Ryan Reeves made an absolute mockery out of the food challenge. Everyone else was fucking dying, but to him, yeah, he was just waiting for the challenge to start. Matt Cappotelli. Matt Cappotelli was the fucking man. Hardcore Holly was a wrinkly bitch. Daniel Puder. I loved Daniel Puder, right? And I'll try and explain why. WWE was full of scum back then, yeah? When you hear about the stories about all the young lads getting bullied in the mid-2000s and Hardcore Holly attacking Matt last season, I loved watching WWE as a kid, but it was a vile, toxic shithole behind the scenes. And the difference between Puder and all these other Tough Enough contestants was that as a trained mixed martial artist, he could beat the shit out of any of these wrestlers, and he proved it by nearly breaking Kurt Angle's arm. People can shit on it and call it unprofessional. I consider it standing up for himself and sending a message to everyone else, and in hindsight, surely it would have been better if Matt Cappotelli could have done the same to Hardcore Holly. Johnny Tough. John was fucking cool. He auditioned for season 2, but Kevin Dunn, in his infinite wisdom, was like, I just think he wants to flip. And that stupid, mouldy fuck. So he got rejected and won season 3 instead. Ariane, number 1. A woman who needs no introduction. She strolled into Tough Enough with the same energy as the woman who got a picture with Liam Payne and said, not a fan, I just want fame. But here's the thing, yeah? Everyone takes the piss out of Ariane because when Steve Austin asked her who her favourite match was, she said Melina versus Alicia Fox, yeah? And then Steve Austin was like, who? And that was really funny at the time. I definitely took the piss out of that too, yeah? But in hindsight, that was actually a reasonable answer to have, right? It's 2011. WWE aren't going to let a woman come in and do Austin Rock or the Hardys versus Edge and Christian. If she wins, she's being brought in to do Kelly versus Eve. And if this is the era we're talking about, then who better to look up to from her perspective than Melina and Alicia Fox? And what the fuck do you mean who? Alicia Fox's sister is literally on the show. Are you dumb? Ariane didn't need to spend all her time watching nerdy wrestling. The second she got eliminated, WWE gave her a contract anyway, and she wrestled there for 5 whole years before jumping ship to AEW. And she wasn't there to waste time. She was just here to do a speed run through the wrestling industry and complete her career in as little time as possible, and with that, she succeeded. She also pinned someone upside down by accident, but that's besides the point.